There was a knock at the door at exactly 6:47 a.m. Not the kind of knock that says package delivery or friendly neighbor. It was slow, hollow, measured, like whoever was on the other side already knew I was awake. I didn't move. I was still sitting on the couch, fully dressed from the night before, lights off, phone face down, trying to remember the last time I blinked. The knock came again. That's when I noticed the porch light was still on. The one Marin always turns off before bed. That switch is her little ritual, like tucking the house in for the night. Except she never came home last night. Because she went to that party. The one I begged her not to go to. The one she promised she'd skip. The one hosted by the exact person I've had a gut feeling about since last year. She didn't lie. She just didn't tell me the truth. I had checked her location once, around 1:30 a.m. She was in some neighborhood I didn't recognize. And then it disappeared. Location not available. No message. No update. Nothing. I stared at the door, heartbeat like a drumline in my ears. Third knock. Louder. I stood up. Finally, bones aching from hours in one position. I crept to the peephole like it was a sin. Looked out. Nobody. Just a damp porch. And something on the doormat. I opened the door. There was no person. Just her earring. The one I gave her last Christmas. The left one, twisted silver with a small emerald drop. Still clasped. Still warm. And underneath it, a Polaroid photo. I didn't recognize the background. But I recognized her. Marin. Sitting on someone's lap. Smiling like she forgot who she was married to. And behind her, on the wall, a spray-painted phrase I'll never unsee. He never had to know. I didn't even notice my hands were shaking until the picture slid to the floor. That was the moment everything started to fall apart. I didn't touch the Polaroid for a long time. It just sat there on the hardwood floor like it was alive, like it was breathing. I kept staring at it, trying to convince myself that maybe, this was some kind of twisted prank. That wasn't my wife. Maybe it was a lookalike. Maybe someone photoshopped it. Maybe I'd hallucinated the whole thing from lack of sleep and too many cups of coffee laced with dread. But it was her. That slight dimple in her left cheek when she smiled too hard. The chipped gold ring on her right index finger. The stupid, fraying friendship bracelet she refused to take off. The one she got during her girls-only weekend 2 months ago. There was no doubt. I picked up the photo with the kind of caution you use when handling something radioactive. The earring was heavier than I remembered. I pressed it into my palm so hard I left an indent. I don't know why, but I scanned the porch like someone might still be watching. I even whispered her name out loud. Marin. No answer. Just the wind brushing through the hedges and a distant dog barking like it knew something I didn't. Back inside, I finally turned my phone over. For missed calls, all from her. But they were spaced weirdly. One at 3:17 a.m. Then 3:18. Then 3:18 again. Then 4:39 a.m. No voicemails. No texts. Just those missed calls. Like she kept picking up the phone, dialing, hanging up, and then finally tried again after something changed. Or after someone let her. I tried calling her back. It rang once, then went straight to voicemail. I didn't leave a message. What was I supposed to say? Hey, thanks for the betrayal. Hope the party was fun. Found your earring, by the way. Also, who the hell took that photo? I walked through the house slowly, like a museum of everything she didn't take with her. Her favorite hoodie, still tossed over the couch. Her open journal, left on the dining table with the pen still uncapped. Half a to-do list. Return library books. Pick up dry cleaning. Buy wine for. It stopped there. No name. No reason. Buy wine for. What? She never took her wine to parties. That's when I noticed the side door to the garage was open. Not wide, just an inch or two. Enough for cold air to seep in. Enough for me to feel like the house had been breached. I grabbed the baseball bat from behind the bookshelf. The same one she always teased me about keeping, like we lived in a zombie movie. But suddenly, I didn't feel like the cautious one. I felt like the only person here thinking clearly. I pushed the door open. The garage was dark, but something glinted near the back. Her phone, face down, just lying there on the concrete floor next to the recycling bin, as if she'd dropped it in a rush, or someone dropped it for her. I bent down, heart pounding. The screen was cracked. The case was smeared with something. Grease? Dirt? No. It smelled like cheap cologne and cold metal. And then, just as I picked it up, the garage light flickered on by itself. Motion sensor. And that's when I saw what was on the inside of the recycling bin. Not bottles. Not cans. Just a red coat, folded too neatly, and a pair of men's sunglasses sitting on top of it. They weren't mine. I didn't touch the coat. Not right away. There was something about the way it was folded, too exact, too intentional. Like someone wanted me to find it, but not in a messy, violent way. More like, here, take this. Think about what it means. The red fabric was clean. Not a single crease out of place. Marin was never that careful with her clothes. She'd always toss things over chairs, hang them on doorknobs, leave them puddled on the bathroom floor. But here it was, perfectly squared, like it had been pressed, like it mattered how it was presented. And those sunglasses? Aviators. Tortoiseshell frame. Not a cheap pair either. They had that smug weight to them. The kind of accessory you wear when you want to be noticed, not shielded. I don't know why, but I reached for them first. Held them up. There was a fingerprint on one lens, smudged, oily, and something else I couldn't place at first. A scratch? No, it was a tiny fleck of dried something. Reddish-brown. I set them back down. I couldn't explain it, but everything about this felt choreographed. The coat, the sunglasses, her phone, the Polaroid. All of it was laid out like puzzle pieces dropped just far enough apart that I had to move, had to act, had to play along. And I did. I finally unfolded the coat. My hands trembled. Something in me half expected a note to fall out, or worse, a key, a receipt, something that would make this all real in a way it wasn't yet. But the pockets were empty. Except the lining, that caught me off guard. It was ripped. Small tear, near the inside seam. I only noticed because something shiny was peeking through. I reached in and pulled out a safety pin, bent at an odd angle. It was stained with something black and sticky, and wrapped around it, like a sad little bandage, was a strip of what looked like hotel tissue. Who the hell hides something in a coat lining? My first thought, drugs. Second, jewelry. Third, panic. Because if Marin hid something in her own coat and then folded it neatly in our recycling bin, that wasn't an accident. That was a signal. She wanted this to be found. Not by anyone, by me. I brought everything inside and laid it all out on the kitchen table like I was some third-rate detective in a bad streaming series. The coat, the glasses, the photo, the phone, and the pin. I sat there staring at them for maybe 20 minutes before I finally unlocked her phone. She never changed her passcode. Still 0816, our old anniversary. The one before we eloped and changed the date for tax reasons. She hated that I still remembered the first one. Said it was sentimental in the wrong direction. The phone opened with no fanfare. No flood of messages. In fact, it looked too clean. The call log was wiped. The texts, mostly gone, except for a few random ones from her friend Mallory about a Spotify playlist and a shared Uber. I opened her Photos app, hoping, dreading, to find something, anything that would explain why her coat was in a bin and I was unraveling at the seams. But there were only 3 photos from last night. The first, a blurry mirror selfie, probably taken before she left. Red coat, winged eyeliner, slightly forced smile. I recognized the bathroom tile behind her, not ours. The second, an empty wine glass on a glass table. Again, not ours. In the background, a faint reflection of someone holding a phone. Hard to tell who. The third was different. The third was taken by someone else. It was of her outside. At night. Sitting on the hood of a car I didn't recognize. She wasn't smiling. Her makeup was slightly smeared. Her hands were tucked between her knees like she was cold or scared or both. And in the corner of the image, half-cropped, was someone else's hand holding what looked like a hotel room key card. That's when the phone shut off. Battery dead. Or maybe something worse. I just sat there in my dim kitchen, surrounded by objects that used to mean nothing but now carried weight I couldn't yet define. My wife had disappeared into the kind of night people don't come back from the same. And every clue she left behind felt like a whisper saying, "You don't know the half of it." But I would. I was going to find out exactly where she went, who she was with, and why someone knocked on my door at 6:47 in the morning just to leave me a breadcrumb trail of betrayal. It took me over an hour to figure out where that photo had been taken. I blew it up on my laptop, zoomed in until the pixels blurred, looking for any clue. At first, nothing stood out, just a parking lot, a blurred tree line, some faint yellow lights in the background. But then I saw it. There was a sliver of a logo behind her, printed on one of those reflective valet signs. 3 letters, SVR. I Googled it, reverse image searched until my fingers cramped. And eventually, I found it, Silver Ridge Villas, some mid-tier boutique hotel on the outskirts of town, tucked behind a gas station and a shuttered bowling alley. One of those places where the lighting's always a little too dim, the carpets are always just a little too damp, and nobody ever really asks questions. I knew I shouldn't have gone there alone. I knew it in that low, quiet place just behind the stomach. The same place that told me not to trust Kaysen, not to trust the silence in Marin's voice when she said the party was just a thing. But I was way past trusting my instincts. I needed proof. When I pulled into the hotel's cracked parking lot, I half expected to see her car. But it wasn't there. Or if it was, it wasn't where I could see it. I walked in through the side entrance, past a vending machine that looked like it hadn't worked since 2009, and stepped into a small lobby that smelled like burnt coffee and floral air freshener fighting to cover something worse. The woman behind the desk looked up from her tablet like I'd interrupted her dream. "Checking in?" she asked, eyeing me in that half-bored, half-wary way people do when they work graveyard shifts. "No, I think my wife left something here. Last night. She might have been with a friend." The woman raised an eyebrow. "Name?" I hesitated, then lied. "Mallory Harper. I think the reservation was under her name." She typed slowly, the way someone does when they're pretending to check, but really just watching your face. Then something clicked, and her eyes changed. There was a Harper. Booked a room around 11:50 p.m. last night. Checked in with a guy. Left early. Room 214. It's already been cleaned. I kept my face still. "Do you know if she left anything behind?" The woman smirked faintly. "You'd be surprised what people leave behind. We only hold valuables, though. Clothes, chargers, other stuff. Usually goes in the bin." I thanked her and turned to leave, but just as I reached the door, she added, without looking up, "The guy she was with? He wasn't named Harper." That stopped me cold. I wanted to ask more, but I could tell by her tone that was all she was willing to say. I drove around to the back of the building, parked near room 214. The curtains were drawn, the lights off, but something was on the ground outside the door, a crumpled receipt, torn down the middle. I picked it up, and my heart stopped. It was for a bottle of red wine, one of the brands Marin always bought. Same timestamp as the check-in, and written in smudged pen along the top were the words, "Don't forget the bracelet." I froze. The bracelet. The stupid woven one she said she'd never take off. The one from her girl's trip. It wasn't on her wrist in the photo. I checked again just to be sure. Whoever wrote this, they noticed. They knew her well enough to point it out. That meant she either lost it or took it off on purpose. I walked back to my car, feeling like I'd just swallowed glass. Back home, I unlocked my safe. It wasn't for guns or money. It was where I kept old stuff. Photos, letters, stuff I was scared would disappear. And tucked in the very back, behind my passport and a copy of our marriage license, was a shoebox Marin had given me 3 anniversaries ago. I hadn't opened it in months. Inside was a pile of old birthday cards, notes, and a flash drive. One I didn't recognize. It wasn't labeled. It wasn't hers. I plugged it into my laptop. One folder. No name. Just a timestamp. NOV_22. And inside it, 23 files. Some video. Some audio. All short. None longer than 30 seconds. I clicked the first one. It was Marin. Laughing. Then, a man's voice. Not mine. Not Kaysen's either. Someone older. Calmer. Whispering something I couldn't make out. Second video. Her, sitting cross-legged on a couch, wine glass in hand, whispering something back. Like they were rehearsing lines. Or being recorded secretly. By the 5th video, I felt sick. I had no idea who the man was. But she looked straight into the camera in one of the clips and said, smiling, "He still doesn't know? It's kind of fun, actually." I watched all 23 files. Every last one of them. Some were corrupted, just bursts of static or frozen frames. But the ones that played, they were like watching a stranger wearing my wife's skin. Her voice was familiar, her expressions the same, but something behind the eyes was different. Harder, lighter, like she was finally off leash and didn't miss the fence at all. In one of the clearer clips, she was lying on a couch, barefoot, holding a cigarette she never used to smoke. Her toenails were painted dark green, something she always said made her look sickly, and yet, there they were. She laughed at something off-screen and then said, "He still thinks I'm doing pottery classes. I haven't touched a wheel in 6 months." Then she reached toward the camera and whispered, Cut it. He's gonna figure it out if I'm not home by 9. There was no pottery class. I'd been covering for her, telling our friends she was busy working on a side hustle. She let me believe it because I needed to. But the sixth file, that's the one that knocked the breath out of me. It wasn't video, just audio. It started with static, then 2 voices. One was hers. The other was male, low, steady, with a kind of confidence that comes from getting away with things. He called her Ree. I'd never heard anyone shorten her name like that. And she let him. The conversation was distorted, like it was recorded through a cheap mic or by accident, but I caught fragments. He's not going to do anything. He doesn't have it in him. Everett's a thinker, not a doer. That's why this works. And then, her voice again. We need one more night. Just one. After that, it's done. I'll handle the rest. I must have replayed that sentence 20 times. Not because I didn't hear it the first time, but because I wanted it to change. Like if I looped it long enough, the words would morph into something harmless. Something innocent. Just one more night. Handle what, exactly? The file's metadata said it was created 6 days ago. So this wasn't ancient history. It was right now. Still unfolding. I backed away from the laptop like it had bitten me. My heart was thudding against my ribs like a warning or a countdown. I needed air. I drove aimlessly for over an hour, letting my thoughts churn into static. At some point, I found myself parked outside Mallory's apartment complex. I didn't even remember turning in, but I knew I needed to talk to her. Marin's best friend. Her alibi. Her secret keeper. She was home. Her blinds were open, lights spilling through, a glass of red wine on her table, and some slow jazz playing in the background. She opened the door halfway when she saw me and stepped out onto the porch like she didn't want me inside. "Everett," she said slowly, voice tight. "You okay?" "I need to ask you something," I said, skipping the small talk. "Where was Marin 2 nights ago?" Mallory blinked. Her eyes flicked to the side for just a second, but it was enough. "She said she was with you," I continued. "But her phone was found at the Silver Ridge Villas. In a garage. Hidden. There's a Polaroid. A receipt. I'm not stupid, Mallory. I just need to know what you know before I go to someone who doesn't care if they break trust to tell me." Mallory's face changed then, not like she was scared of being caught, but more like she was afraid for me. "Everett, go home." "What? I'm serious. Go home. Right now? If you found that stuff, you're already too close. Don't push it." "Too close to what?" She stepped in closer, her voice barely above a whisper. She wasn't supposed to leave anything behind. None of it. They said it was cleaned up. If you found something, it means someone screwed up. And if they know you found it. She cut herself off, looked over her shoulder, and then said again, firmer, "Just go home. Lock your doors. Don't call anyone. Not even her. Especially not her." I started to speak, to demand an explanation, but she'd already turned and shut the door in my face. I stood there for a moment, breath frozen in my throat. I suddenly realized I was sweating through my shirt, even though the night air had dropped to 45 degrees. As I walked back to my car, I noticed a black SUV idling across the street. Windows tinted, engine running. It wasn't there when I arrived. And as I pulled out of the lot and made a left, I watched it slide slowly into traffic behind me, keeping 2 car lengths back, never signaling, never passing. The SUV tailed me all the way back to my neighborhood. It never got closer than 2 car lengths, never drifted far enough for me to lose sight of it. When I turned, it turned. When I slowed, it slowed. When I finally pulled into my driveway, it cruised past slowly, just once, before disappearing into the dark like it had never been there. I sat in my car for several minutes, waiting to see if it would circle back. It didn't. When I finally went inside, the house felt wrong, like someone had been inside and left everything exactly where it was. Too perfect, too untouched. The kitchen lights were still on, the wine receipt still on the table, the red coat still folded, but the air had changed. Heavier now, like it was holding its breath. I checked the doors. Locked. Checked the windows. Also locked. Still, I walked room to room with the baseball bat, not because I expected to find anyone, but because I needed to feel like I had control over something. Anything. But the truth was, I was rattled. Marin had been hiding things. Mallory was spooked. And now some stranger in an SUV was treating me like a loose end that hadn't been tied off yet. I barely slept that night. Every sound felt amplified. Pipes expanding. Floorboards groaning. At one point, I swore I heard whispering outside the bedroom window. But when I checked, there was nothing but the wind. By morning, I'd made a decision. I was going to figure this out, fully, completely, before someone else decided I shouldn't. The first thing I did was run a metadata trace on the audio files from the flash drive. A friend of mine from undergrad, Brett, owed me a favor. He worked in digital security now and had tools I didn't. I sent him one of the files, told him I needed origin data, maybe IP history if it was ever synced or stored before. He called me back 2 hours later with his voice low and tense. "Dude, where did you get this?" "I just need the data," I said, avoiding the question. "It wasn't made on a phone," Brett said. "It was recorded with a body mic. One of those high-end lavaliers you use for hidden captures. Broadcast-level encryption. And get this, it was run through a signal scrubber. Like someone was trying to mask the original recording device before storing it." That's not hobbyist stuff. No, it's not. Everett, this isn't some cheating spouse situation. This is surveillance. The word hit me like a punch to the chest. Surveillance. Who was watching her? And why was I only finding out now? I hung up with Brett and went back to the files. This time, I stopped listening to Marin. I started listening to the man. His voice. His patterns. He never said her name. Never called her baby or honey or anything close. Always always short sentences. Always in control. In one of the last files, he said something that I missed the first time. The offer's still open. He doesn't even need to be involved. That's the beauty of it. What offer? What didn't I need to be involved in? That line stuck in my head like a splinter. I wrote it down and read it over and over again. And then I made the mistake of Googling it. In quotes, exactly as he said it. Just to see. And that's when I found something I wasn't supposed to find. A cached PDF, buried on an old, defunct legal site. The document had been part of a civil lawsuit from 2 years ago, dismissed quietly in arbitration. It was a class action whistleblower case against a consulting firm called Alder Lane Strategic Group, a quiet but powerful network that offered security and psychological pressure services to corporations and high-net-worth individuals. But buried in the footnotes of one page was a line that made my skin crawl. Primary tactic involves emotional leveraging. Use of marital instability is common. Targets are kept unaware. Phrases such as, "he doesn't even need to be involved," have appeared in internal audio logs multiple times. It was a script. The voice on the flash drive was reciting part of a protocol, which meant Marin wasn't just cheating. She was participating in something larger, something orchestrated. And for whatever reason, my name was part of it. At that point, I no longer cared about catching her in a lie. I needed to understand why I was chosen. Why someone was watching us, recording us, and coaching her through it. I tore through old emails, old letters, bank statements, anywhere I might find a loose thread. And I found one. A payment. 7 months ago, to a name I didn't recognize, C. Dalton. Just under $4,000. Labeled as a consultation fee. It wasn't from my account. It was from Marin's personal checking. One she never used anymore. And the memo line? Just 3 words. Project, Sunhouse/E. E. As in Everett. As in me. I didn't know what Project Sunhouse was. But I knew that whatever it meant, my wife signed off on it. Funded it. Hid it. And now I was in it. Willing or not. For days I moved through my own house like a trespasser. Every drawer I opened, every cabinet door, every old box in the attic felt like I was disarming a bomb someone had left for me years ago. Every time I thought I'd run out of secrets, another one appeared. My kitchen table looked like a crime scene diagram now. Screenshots, receipts, printouts of bank transfers, and in the middle of it all the red coat, like a silent witness. I couldn't stop replaying the phrase from the PDF in my head. Use of marital instability is common. The coldness of it, the way it turned my marriage into a line item on a tactics sheet, made me feel nauseous. This wasn't an affair. It wasn't even blackmail. It was something stranger, an operation, a project, a game played with real people's lives. And for some reason, I was at target. On the 4th night after finding the flash drive, I heard the sound. Not the knock from before. This time it was my phone buzzing on the table, face down. No caller ID. Just unknown. I answered. At first there was nothing. Just the low hiss of a line opened somewhere far away. Then a voice, distorted, as though played through a filter, but unmistakably male. "You've been busy," it said. I froze. "Who is this?" "You don't need to know my name." I want to know why you're recording my wife. A pause, then a dry chuckle. Recording? She volunteered. Don't act like you're a victim. You signed the papers, even if you didn't know it. What papers? Project Sunhouse. The voice said, calm and steady, like he was reciting an agenda. Initial phase complete. Emotional leverage established. Subject compliant. Secondary subject. That's you, showing expected behavior. I gripped the phone so hard my knuckles cracked. You think this is normal? You think you can just... Everett. The voice interrupted, and the way it said my name made my skin crawl. You're exactly where you're supposed to be. All your reactions are within tolerance. She's been brilliant, by the way. You chose well. She's my wife, I spat. Is she? The voice was smiling now. I could hear it. Or is she your handler? I hung up before he could finish. The house felt even smaller after that call. I stood there shaking, my head full of static. I couldn't tell if it was rage or fear or both. They had been inside my life for months, maybe years. They knew my routines, my thoughts, my weaknesses, and they were still watching. I went back to the shoebox and pulled out every scrap of paper Marin had ever given me. Birthday notes, grocery lists, little doodles she left in my lunch bag. I spread them across the floor and stared. There had to be something, a code, a pattern, a date, anything. And then I saw it. Not a word. A symbol. Tiny, drawn in the corner of 3 different notes over the past year. A simple little sun with 4 rays on one side, 5 on the other. I'd always thought it was just her doodling. But now it looked exactly like the Sunhouse logo I'd seen in the cached PDF. It wasn't a doodle. It was a brand. I remembered Mallory's warning, don't push it, and wondered if it was already too late. But I couldn't stop. I typed Sunhouse into every search engine I could find, even ones Brett had given me for the dark web. Dead ends everywhere. Just one lead. A defunct domain, Sunhouse Experiential. Com, with a blank white page and a single login field. I didn't have a password, but I had Marin's phone. I charged it, powered it back on, and scrolled through every scrap of data left on it. Hidden in her Notes app, under an innocuous grocery list, was a string of numbers and letters. I entered it into the login field. The page flickered. Then it opened. A dashboard appeared, sterile, gray, full of metrics. Subject Everett. Emotional Phase 3. A timeline of events. Dates. Notes about trigger moments. Under Handler was Marin's full name. And at the very bottom, a status update. Transition scheduled. Direct contact in 48H. Direct contact. With who? I stared at the screen until it logged me out. My whole body was buzzing like a live wire. This wasn't just about them watching me. It was about them moving me somewhere. Changing something. Transition. Like I was a lab rat being moved to a new cage. The phone buzzed again. A text this time, from an unknown number. Stop digging. She tried to warn you. I looked around my silent house, at the photos on the walls, the code on the table, the bat leaning against the chair. My own life felt like a stage set someone else had built. For the first time since this started, I wasn't just angry or scared. I was ready. If they wanted direct contact, they were going to get it, but on my terms. I had 48 hours to turn the trap around. I didn't sleep at all the next 2 nights. Instead, I planned. I printed everything. Screenshots from the Sunhouse dashboard, bank transfers, photos, Mallory's warning scribbled on a napkin. I called Brett again, told him everything. He didn't try to talk me out of it. He just said, if you're going to walk into a trap, make sure you're the one holding the map. On the morning of the supposed transition, I drove to a coffee shop across from the Silver Ridge Villas, laptop bag under my arm. Brett had given me a little program that would record every incoming signal on Marin's phone and forward it to a secure server. I placed the phone on the table, ordered a coffee, and waited. At 11:02 a.m., a black SUV rolled into the lot. The same one from my neighborhood. 2 men got out, plain clothes, sunglasses, nothing theatrical. One of them glanced at his watch, then at the coffee shop. He made a call. My laptop pinged. Direct contact initiated. I didn't wait. I walked out, straight toward them. No sneaking, no running. Just a tired man with a folder under his arm and a look in his eyes that said, enough. You're here for me, I said. They both hesitated. One of them started to speak, but I held up the folder. Sunhouse, I said, loudly enough for the people outside the shop to hear. Phase 3. Emotional leverage. Handler Marin. Secondary subject Everett. Transition scheduled today. Heads turned. The barista froze mid-pour. The men stiffened. I've got copies of everything. I continued, my voice steady. All of it's in a secure drive set to email 3 reporters if anything happens to me. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to back off. You're going to leave me alone. And you're going to let Marin walk away from this. The taller one's jaw twitched. The other man glanced at the coffee shop. They hadn't expected me to be loud. They hadn't expected me to have evidence. They definitely hadn't expected an audience. Finally, the tall one said, "You don't understand." "I understand perfectly." I cut him off. "This is over. Whatever you were running, it's over. I'm not a target. I'm a witness." For a long second, no one moved. Then, without another word, they turned, got back into the SUV, and drove away. Just like that. No chase. No violence. No dramatic threat. Gone. I stood there for a moment, shaking, half laughing at how anticlimactic it was. But the truth is, that's how these things end when the light hits them. They don't fight in daylight. When I got back home, Marin was sitting on the porch steps. No makeup. No red coat. Just her, looking small and exhausted. She didn't even try to explain. She just said, "I'm sorry. I thought I could get out before you found out. I thought they wouldn't hurt you if I played along." I sat next to her. For a long time, neither of us spoke. "I'm not sure what happens now," I finally said. "We leave," she whispered. "We start over somewhere else. I'll testify if I have to. I'll tell the truth." And for the first time in months, maybe years, she looked like Marin again. Not the handler. Not the stranger in the videos. Just Marin. We did leave. Not in the middle of the night like fugitives, but in broad daylight, with our names cleared, a lawyer already drafting statements, Brett sending me daily updates as the Sunhouse story began to unravel online. Mallory testified too. More victims came forward. The consulting firm shut down under federal investigation. Nobody followed us again. It's been 7 months now. We live 2 states away. No red coat. No hidden cameras. No late-night knocks at the door. Marin's in therapy. So am I. We take long walks at sunset and talk about things we never used to. About boundaries. About trust. About how easy it is for people to slip into lives they don't recognize until it's almost too late. Some days are hard. But most days, we're free. And that, more than revenge, is the ending I wanted. The ending I chose.